You know, love has this strange habit of showing up when you've finally stopped looking for it. Sometimes it doesn't knock softly. It bites right where it hurts the most. That's exactly what happened to Arinze. He wasn't searching for love. Not after the heartbreak that left him building walls high enough to keep the world out. He buried himself in his work, an architect who designs beautiful homes for others while refusing to build one for himself. Then came her. The woman who laughed like she'd never been broken, who spoke as if every word carried sunlight. She wasn't the kind of woman who fit neatly into his world of blueprints and deadlines. She was color, chaos, and charm wrapped into one breathtaking package. And on one ordinary afternoon, when the rain decided to flirt with the city, fate made their paths cross. But you see, fate never plays fair. Have you ever met someone who made your heart forget all the reasons it stopped believing? Because that's how it began. Simple favor, wrong turn, and a love that bit deep, when neither of them expected it. This is the story of Arinze and Zuri. Of how pain met warmth, how timing teased destiny, and how sometimes the heart finds home in the most unexpected places. Arinze never liked rain. It reminded him of endings. His last relationship, the goodbye whispered under a gray sky, the ring returned without a word. Ever since then, he told himself love was an equation best left unsolved. So that day, when the sky opened up as he stood outside the cafe, umbrella forgotten in his car, he thought it was just another inconvenience. Until she ran past him, soaked, laughing, clutching a portfolio to her chest. "Excuse me, can I hide here a minute?" she asked breathlessly, pressing herself against the doorway beside him. Her smile was lightning. Uninvited but impossible to ignore. He gave a polite nod, keeping his voice low. "You're already here, aren't you?" That should have been it. Two strangers waiting out the rain. But Zuri had a way of pulling words out of silence. "You don't look like someone who enjoys small talk," she teased. "And you don't look like someone who stays quiet for long," he replied, surprising himself. He grinned. "Touché." For the first time in years, Arinze felt something shift. A spark he couldn't rationalize. Minutes stretched. Rain softened. She turned to go, but her portfolio slipped, scattering sketches across the wet floor. He bent to help her gather them, and when his hand brushed hers, time just stopped. Zuri noticed the hesitation in his eyes. The way he looked like a man fighting something invisible. "You're an architect," she said softly, catching the stamp on one of his papers. "And you?" he asked. "A freelance artist. I paint mostly emotion," she smiled. "Messy, unpredictable things." He wanted to tell her that he didn't do messy, but she already knew. Before leaving, she tucked one of her sketches into his hand. A rough sketch of two people standing under the rain, both holding the same umbrella. Underneath she'd written, "For the man who doesn't smile enough." That was their beginning. Simple, unplanned, yet somehow unforgettable. Tell me, have you ever met someone who walked into your ordinary day and quietly rewrote it? That night, Arinze couldn't sleep. He told himself it was just curiosity, nothing more. But when dawn broke, he found himself at the same cafe again, just in case she came back. And when she did, smiling, this time with dry hair and a deliberate spark in her eyes, he realized that maybe, just maybe, he was in trouble. When Zuri walked into the cafe the next morning, she didn't seem surprised to find Arinze there. She tilted her head, smiled, and said, "Didn't expect to see Mr. Architect again so soon." He tried to play it cool. "I come here often. Good coffee." She glanced at his untouched cup. "Sure. And coincidence is your favorite flavor." He chuckled, and that tiny sound, barely a laugh, made her heart do a small, reckless somersault. They fell into easy conversation, as if they'd been rehearsing it in another life. How he sketches buildings before sunrise, how she paints emotions before they disappear. Every word built a bridge, and somewhere halfway across, they forgot why strangers ever needed walls. That afternoon turned into a week of chance encounters. At the flower stall by the park, where she claimed tulips were the rebels of romance. At the bookstore where he caught her reading the same page twice because she was eavesdropping on him, asked the clerk about architectural photography. At the art gallery, where her painting hung quietly in a corner, a swirl of storm and color that looked suspiciously like the rain that had brought them together. He stood in front of it for a long time. She walked up beside him, pretending not to notice how close they stood. "So," she said softly, "do you like it?" He didn't look at the painting. "I do." Her lips curved. "The painting." His gaze met hers. "Something like that." And just like that, the air grew heavier, warmer, filled with everything they weren't saying. Have you ever had someone look at you like they're seeing every version of you you've tried to hide? Because that's what it felt like for Zuri. For Arinze, it felt like coming home to a place he didn't know he'd missed. But love, real love, never arrives without a test. A week later she got a call, an offer to move to another city for a gallery job she'd dreamed of. Her hands trembled when she told him. "It's a big opportunity, Arinze. I should be happy." "Then why do you sound like you're apologizing?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked away, tracing circles on her coffee cup. "I just didn't expect to meet someone who makes staying harder than leaving." He froze. 'Cause he felt the same. But he'd promised himself not to fall again, not when he still carried the ghost of a love that left him questioning his worth. So he did what men do when they're terrified. He hid behind logic. "You should take it. You've worked for this." Zuri smiled, but her eyes betrayed her. "You're really bad at pretending you don't care." For days they danced around the truth. Every conversation tiptoed along the edge of confession. Every silence was thick with the things they wouldn't say. Then one night she showed up at his studio. The city lights painted her in gold and shadow. "I was nearby," she said. "And I figured you wouldn't eat unless someone reminded you food exists." He looked at her, his heart doing that inconvenient flutter again. She set down a paper bag, walked around, and stopped beside his drafting table. "So this is where you hide," she murmured. "Not hiding," he said. "Thinking. About me." He blinked, caught completely off guard. She smiled at his silence. "That's what I thought." Then she picked up one of his sketches, a new design he'd been working on. Two curved structures leaning into each other, held together by a single beam of light. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's unfinished." "Like most good things," she said, looking right at him. "Tell me, what would you do if the person you tried not to love kept showing up in all your unfinished plans?" They ended up sharing dinner on the studio floor. Takeout, laughter, the hum of soft music filling the air. Zuri told him about her childhood, about how she painted on old newspapers because her mother couldn't afford canvases. Arinze told her about the fiancé who left him because he was too steady, too afraid to dream beyond the safe lines. She looked at him then, eyes soft. "Maybe you just needed someone who sees color where you see walls." That was the moment he realized he was already halfway in love. But life, as always, had a cruel sense of timing. The next morning she sent a message. "Got the job. They want me to start in 2 weeks." He stared at his phone for a long time, then typed, "Congratulations," and deleted the 100 other words that wanted to follow. For the next few days they both tried to move as if nothing had changed. Coffee, jokes, comfortable silences, but every laugh felt borrowed, every look stretched too long. On her last night before leaving, they walked to the bridge overlooking the city. The wind smelled like rain again, just like the day they met. She turned to him, voice trembling. "Tell me not to go, and I won't." He wanted to. Every part of him wanted to. But fear is a powerful liar. Instead, he whispered, "You should chase your dreams." She nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "Maybe some dreams chase you back." She leaned in, kissed him, softly, carefully, like a goodbye and a promise all at once. And then she was gone. Would you have let them go, or asked them to stay? That night, the rain came again. Arinze watched it slide down the window, same as before. But this time, it didn't feel like an ending. Felt like the pause before something brave. Because sometimes, Love's first bite isn't meant to wound. It's meant to wake you. And for the first time in years, Arinze stayed up not to work, but to design something new. Not a building. Not a project. A way to tell her that he finally understood what home meant. The city never sleeps, but for Arinze it felt like it had. Every night after Zuri left, he caught himself reaching for his phone, just to scroll through their messages, rereading every silly joke, every half-finished thought. She'd only been gone a week, but the silence already felt heavier than a year. He told himself it was for the best, that she deserved the world, and he was just one quiet corner of it. But sometimes when the elevator doors opened and a burst of laughter floated in from the lobby, his heart would skip, hoping it was hers. And every time, disappointment pressed its weight a little deeper into his chest. Meanwhile, in another city, Zuri's life looked perfect on the surface. New gallery, new followers, new lights shining on her art. But every time her camera clicked, it felt empty, like she was taking pictures of a world that didn't see her anymore. She'd scroll through old photos on her phone, Arinze frowning at spilled coffee, the corner of his smile caught mid-laugh. His sleeves rolled up while fixing a crooked painting in the hotel lobby. And though she had thousands of pictures, those few were the only ones that felt alive. One night, after another long exhibition, she opened her laptop and began to write. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing the words that would later make hearts around the world ache. Love bites when you least expect. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't arrive in perfect timing or tidy boxes. It comes like rain, beautiful, messy, and impossible to ignore. She poured herself a soul into that post. Every regret, every what, every whisper of the man who had taught her what vulnerability really meant. And when she clicked publish, it felt like setting a secret free. Have you ever written something just to stop yourself from missing someone? The next morning her post had gone viral. Hundreds of comments flooded in. This broke me. Whoever he is, he's lucky. Love bites, but I'd still risk it. And somewhere miles away Arinze saw it too. He hadn't planned to. A coworker sent him the link saying, "This sounds like you, bro." At first, he laughed it off until he read the opening line. He froze. 'Cause he knew that voice. He knew that heart. With each paragraph, it felt like she was speaking directly to him, every word cutting and comforting all at once. When he reached the last line, "Some people come to teach you how to feel again," his throat tightened. He realized he'd been waiting for a sign. And maybe this was it. That same day he made a decision. He booked a flight. Not because he was sure she'd take him back, but because he finally understood something. You can't claim to love someone and keep your heart locked behind fear. Love demands courage. Love bites, yes, but sometimes that's how it heals you. When he arrived at the art gallery, it was buzzing with energy. People stood in clusters, admiring her photographs, each one drenched in color and emotion. Then he saw it. Right at the center of the exhibit was that photograph. The rooftop reflection. His reflection. Below it, a caption read, "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let love ruin your plans." His breath caught. He turned and there she was, standing by the window, in a soft cream dress that danced with the breeze. Her hair fell over her shoulders, and when she turned, their eyes met like two magnets that had finally stopped fighting the pull. For a moment neither spoke. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that had haunted his sleep. "You came," she whispered. "I had to," he said. "You keep showing up everywhere. Even in my own blueprints." She laughed quietly, blinking back tears. "I thought you'd forgotten me." He stepped closer. "I tried. Didn't work." The air between them shifted. Warmer, heavier, full of unspoken apologies. "Would you forgive someone who let fear push you away?" "I read your post," he said softly. Zuri looked down, embarrassed. "That wasn't supposed to be about you." He smiled. "You're a terrible liar." Her laughter trembled. "You hurt me, Arinze." "I know," he admitted. "Because I was scared. I thought keeping control would protect me, but it only made me lose you." She took a breath, her voice small. And what now? He reached for her hand, fingers brushing hers like a question. Now, I stop running from what's real. Their hands fit together like they'd been waiting for this moment all along. The gallery quieted around them, as if the world itself was holding its breath. He lifted her chin gently. You were right, he said. About what? Love bites, he smiled faintly. But sometimes that's how you know it's real. Her lips parted, her eyes soft. So what happens when it bites again? He leaned in, his voice a whisper against her skin. Then we learn how to heal together. And this time when he kissed her, it wasn't goodbye. It was everything they'd both been too afraid to say. Do you believe in second chances? That night, they walked out of the gallery hand in hand, under the soft drizzle of city rain. No promises, no grand declarations. Just two hearts finally beating in sync. Zuri smiled up at him. So what now, Mr. Architect? He looked at her, eyes warm. Now we build something that lasts. And as they disappeared into the night, laughter mingling with the rain, it was clear. Love had bitten them both. But instead of bleeding, they bloomed. The morning after the gallery felt different. The sky outside Arinze's hotel room glowed pale gold, the kind of light that gently tells you the world has changed. Quietly, without asking permission. He stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the rain-soaked streets dry under the rising sun. For the first time in years, his thoughts weren't about deadlines, meetings, or floor plans. They were about her. The way she laughed like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The way her eyes softened whenever she caught him pretending not to smile. And the way her presence made even silence feel like a conversation. He didn't know what the future looked like, but he knew one thing. He didn't want to build anything that didn't have her in it. Later that afternoon, he found himself standing at her studio door. She was inside, barefoot, camera in hand, surrounded by half-finished paintings and messy jars of color. She looked up, surprised. You again? He smiled, leaning against the doorframe. I wanted to see where the magic happens. She raised an eyebrow. You mean the chaos? Same thing, isn't it? Their eyes met, teasing, soft, familiar. And suddenly, it didn't feel like a grand reunion anymore. Just felt right. He walked around the studio, studying her work. Each canvas was a confession. Each photograph a memory frozen in emotion. This one, he said, pointing to a painting of two figures facing each other, surrounded by splashes of blue and gold. What's it called? She smiled shyly. It doesn't have a name yet. He took a slow step closer. Then let's call it Us. Her breath hitched. Us. He nodded. Because it's messy. A little unpredictable. But it still feels like home. Have you ever met someone who made the chaos in your life feel like art? They spent the rest of the afternoon together. Laughing, painting, arguing playfully over music choices. Zuri snapped photos of him when he wasn't looking, capturing the unguarded smile that had been missing for years. He teased her for it, of course. You know, that's the 5th photo in 10 minutes, he said. 6th, she corrected. And it's your fault. You're photogenic when you're happy. He laughed, shaking his head. Then I guess you'll be taking a lot more pictures. She stopped, looked at him and whispered, I hope so. The room fell quiet again. Not heavy, just beautifully full. That night, as they walked to the rooftop, the same one where she once captured his reflection, the world below sparkled with city lights. The air was cool, and the soft hum of life surrounded them. Zuri leaned on the railing. You ever think about how love sneaks up on you? He chuckled. Every day lately. It's scary, isn't it? She said, her voice almost lost in the wind. He nodded. It's terrifying. But it's worth it. She turned to face him, her hair brushing against his face. You really believe that? He smiled softly. I believe in you. And then she did what she always did. She reached for her camera, lifted it, and framed him in her lens. Don't move, she whispered. Why? Because this, right here, is my favorite kind of forever. She clicked the shutter. The flash lit up his face for a second, but the warmth in his eyes, the affection in his half-smile, that was eternal. What does forever look like to you? A promise, a person, or a single moment? Weeks later, the two of them launched something new together. A boutique art hotel. Half his precision, half her imagination. Every room carried a story. Each hallway was lined with her photos of fleeting, imperfect moments. Laughter, tears, embraces. And in the lobby hung one large frame. Their first photo together. Coffee spill. Guests called it the Heart Hotel. Zuri called it home. Arinze once told her, "Buildings should breathe." And somehow she made that true. The hotel breathed with love, art, and second chances. On opening night, Zuri stood by the entrance, watching guests admire the walls. Arinze slipped his arm around her waist. "You nervous?" She laughed softly. "No, just grateful." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You know, this started with spilled coffee." She smiled. "And a stubborn man who thought love was a weakness." He grinned. "And a woman who proved him wrong." Their eyes met, still teasing, still tender, still full of that spark that started it all. Do you believe some loves are meant to find their way back, no matter how far they drift? Later that night, when the guests had gone and only the soft piano music played in the background, Arinze and Zuri danced barefoot in the empty lobby. No grand moves, no choreography, just quiet laughter, slow steps, and the kind of closeness that makes time irrelevant. "Arinze," she murmured against his shoulder, "you think love ever stops biting?" He smiled, kissing her temple. "No. But now it tastes sweet." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "So, happy ending." He shook his head gently. "Happy beginning." And as they swayed under the golden light, her head resting against his chest, it was clear. They had finally learned what love really meant. Not perfection, not safety, but choosing to stay even when it bites. Sometimes love doesn't come wrapped in timing or logic. Sometimes it arrives like rain. Unexpected, inconvenient, and unstoppable. But if you're brave enough to open your heart, even when it hurts, you'll find that love's bite isn't meant to wound. It's meant to remind you that you're alive. And maybe, just maybe, that's what being made of love truly means. Have you ever loved someone who changed how you see yourself? Do you believe love can heal old wounds? If this story touched your heart, tap like, subscribe, share it, and tell us, what does love taste like to you?